A tribute to Jane Campion, uncompromising artist and feminist icon. Jane Campion's recent win at the Oscars comes as a highlight in her decades-long career as a filmmaker. Dame Jane Campion has long been recognized as an auteur to watch. Her first film, Peel, won the short film Palme d'Or at Cannes, and about a decade later, she won the Palme d'Or that people mean when they say the Palme d'Or for the piano, becoming the first woman ever to do so. This year, she won the Academy Award for the Best Director for her work on The Power of the Dog, making her the first woman in history to have won both the Best Original Screenplay Award, which she won for The Piano in 1993, and the Best Director Award.
Come now.
It must. She wants it to come.
Yes, and so do I, but there are too few of us here to carry it.
Throughout her acclaimed career, the New Zealand director has remained true to the dark, wacky sensibility that made her film stand out in the first place. She has even switched up her medium of operation to do so. With her thriller miniseries Top of the Lake, she said in an interview for Guardian, "The really clever people used to do film. Now, the really clever people do television." An uncompromising artist, she has operated wherever her vision can most clearly come to life. More than the recognition she has garnered, Campion's commitment to her craft makes her stand apart as one of cinema's greats. Jane Campion, visual novelist. Campion has said many times throughout her career that she considered herself a writer before beginning her directorial career, and that she only began directing because it seemed she was the only one up to the task of putting her scripts into motion.
Inspired me to think, yeah, this is where the freedom is. Actually, this is where they're going to let you do it.
Perhaps because of her penchant for reading and writing, her films often feel like novels. As a matter of fact, Campion adapted the Henry James novel, The Portrait of a Lady in 1996, chose the poet John Keats and his lover Fanny Braun as the subjects of the film Bright Star, played by Ben Whishaw and Abby Cornish, respectively.
I must have had my eyes closed because I can't remember.
Wrote a gothic tale on par with the works of the Bronte sisters for The Piano, and adapted Thomas Savage's novel The Power of the Dog to make the award-winning movie that won her Best Director. A lover of literature, Campion captures the sort of subtle interpersonal moments that authors often depict with inner monologues. Moments like the meditation scene in Sweetie.
I don't feel anything.
Okay, good.
When Kay, played by Karen Colston, questions the man leading the group meditation, played by Charles Abbott. The camera leaves a lot of room around his head at one point, framing a potted plant as prominently as his head itself. A detail Kay must be noticing. After all, when Kay speaks from her chair, we get a close-up of her face, which informs us that this whole scene takes place from her perspective. She insists that the meditation won't work, clearly getting under the skin of the meditation leader despite his best efforts, and when she finally does close her eyes, we are shown a vision in her head that reveals to us the chaos we have sensed there throughout the film. The most indelible scenes in Campion's oeuvre, like the meditation scene, put the minds of her characters on full display. Her characters constantly measure one another up, most of them reacting slowly and carefully unless something boils over within them. And something always inevitably does. The camera, meanwhile, hints at what's going on just beneath the surface, making her movies rich with inner life even in the less shocking and dramatic scenes. Emphasis on visual. To achieve such richness, most often without the aid of a literal inner monologue, takes artistic prowess. Campion understands that cinema is, at its core, a visual art form, and often what guides us through her dense and emotionally complicated narratives are visual metaphors.
I just fell in love with cinema. It felt like the most dangerous, exciting, edgy.
A striking recent example occurs in The Power of the Dog when Phil, played by Benedict Cumberbatch, tells Peter, played by Cody Smit-McPhee, to put a wounded rabbit out of its misery. After Peter breaks its neck off screen, we watch Phil watching it happen. We see a shot of bloodied grass in the wind. The rabbit, cowering beneath the wooden beams that broke its legs, and the eerily compelling bloodied grass tells us more about Phil than he himself would ever feel comfortable sharing. The sense also hints at Peter's killer instinct.
My mother was a florist, so I made them to look like the ones in our garden.
Oh, well, do pardon me.
As an art student at the University of Sydney, Campion studied painting, and her practiced hand translates to her movies. There exists an abundance of references to paintings in cinema, and the connection between the two art forms is pretty intuitive. Campion, in a manner similar to David Lynch and Louis Buñuel, creates visual masterpieces all her own that draw from and advance the work of painters before her. Feminist cinema icon. One of the aspects of Jane Campion's films that has made them so lastingly impactful is the complexity of her characters. Featuring complex and not always likable leads had long been a staple of art house cinema before Campion began her career. But unlike many of her male contemporaries, Campion extended the complexity to women. A quote from Campion's interviews, which can be found in Virginia Wright Wexman's Jane Campion interviews, reads, "One of the things we learn in movies directed by men is what the fantasy woman is. What we learn in movies directed by women is what real women are about. Women in Campion's films swear, compete, break down, pee, fall in love with all kinds of people, and exist in simple ways that don't always come to light in male-directed films. They are not role models or fantasy women. In fact, almost all the characters in Campion's movies lead unenviable lives. They remind us of our own messy world rather than provide an escape. Campion capitalizes on that realism to show the female experiences as only a female director could. Campion holds a distinct place in cinema history as a female powerhouse in a historically male-dominated industry. In an interview at the Lincoln Center, Sofia Coppola called Campion a role model, expressing how empowering Campion's body of work has been for her personally.
A lot of macho dude directors, and then, Jane came out and was like just as strong as them in her own way.
Greta Gerwig and Jane Campion presented the Honorary Governor's Award to Lena Wertmüller, and in her speech, Campion explicitly called out inequality in the industry.
The first and last time a woman experiences true equality is at birth, the moment when the doctors or nurses or midwives catch.
She has carried the torch between generations of excellent female directors, and the characters she's written will undoubtedly leave a legacy befitting of her. Behold, she has carried the torch between generations of excellent female directors, and the characters she's written will undoubtedly leave a legacy befitting of her bold, outspoken condemnation of industry inequality. Where to begin? If you have yet to challenge yourself with Campion's work, I recommend starting at the beginning with Peel, the short film that got everything started. It's a perfect example of how deeply she delves into the most unexpected moments as the action kicks off with an upset young man throwing orange peels out of a car window. If you have a little more time, watch Sweetie, her debut feature film. It's an excellent introduction to the subtle, almost intrusive nature of Campion's films. It's similar in nature to Aunt Morrigg's, played by Carrie Walker, description of Ada's, played by Holly Hunter, piano playing in The Piano. Her playing is strange, like a mood that passes into you. To have a sound creep inside you is not at all pleasant. Though unsettling, the film will keep you thinking for weeks, as will each one you watch afterwards.